Hello, welcome to It's 420 Somewhere. It's Wednesday. It's Wednesday, March 17th, and it is definitely 420 somewhere out there. So we have two stories today. The first story is the whole stuff going on in Nebraska with the governor kind of lashing out at probably new marijuana reform happening within the next couple years in the state. And the one quote that unfortunately is making the rounds and is probably working to a small extent, but also getting people a little angry and exasperated, which is him saying, quote unquote, if you legalize marijuana, you're going to kill your kids. It sounds more like something that you've heard out of the 60s with the counterculture movement of the time, but not something you'd hear recently. So it's very fascinating. And then right after that, he tries to say it's backed by data. And when the team was asked specifically what this data was, they cited a couple studies that show marijuana having been smoked by people with psychosis or people who later went on to commit suicide. So what it does is kind of link it to a negative aspect instead of showing any causality or even really correlation. It's a bit of a straw man, and unfortunately, it's very easy to do this kind of thing with drugs, let alone marijuana, because you can take anything and say, look at this in relation to this negative thing, and now they seem associated. Whereas you can also do the same thing on the other side and say, look at this in association with happiness or therapy or whatever, and see it only as a positive thing. And you won't really get a full picture, or at least a well-rounded picture, unless you're seeing multiple sources and multiple sides put together into one. It's very easy to ignore whatever side of things that you don't want to see. And it's exactly the reason why drugs and marijuana are so easy to politicize, because you can show that narrow-minded view of it and say that's all there is, that's all it is, and it's going to kill your kids. Thankfully, it feels like it's him kind of lashing out because the drug is becoming so popular and it's soon coming to his own state. So it doesn't feel like it's something that's going to actually have big influence outside of his own circle. And inevitably in 2022, there will probably be legalization of marijuana on the ballot in Nebraska. And we know what happens when it's on the ballot in states. It almost always goes in the favor of legalization.
Did you guys hear about that actress who got stabbed?
No, what happened?
Reese.
With a spoon?
No, with a knife.
The next story is more of a lifestyle thing that, whatever the genre is. A new trailer for a Demi Lovato series on YouTube, where she is kind of going into her history with addiction and her struggles dealing with all of that. In 2018, she had a heroin overdose that left her with 3 strokes, and she was blind for a bit. Just really, really awful struggles for her getting over this hump of addiction with heroin and opioids.
Hey, be careful. Okay. I felt like I needed to tell you that I'm always careful.
Demi's good at making you believe that she's okay.
Demi is very good at hiding what she needs to hide.
I crossed a line that I had never crossed.
Are we talking about heroin? Are we doing that?
This was the best show you have ever done. It's just only going to get better from here.
Yeah. I snapped.
And one of the revelations that came out this morning from people who have seen the series, and the series isn't out yet, but people have seen the series, is that she now smokes in moderation marijuana and drinks alcohol. Both, she claims, are in moderation, yet obviously it's a bit of a controversy because there's so little known about the other options beyond AA or NA, or things that advocate strict sobriety. Her path of moderation to some comes off almost as a taboo. These are exact quotes from her. Telling myself that I can never have a drink or smoke marijuana, I feel like that's setting myself up for failure because I am such a black and white thinker. I had it drilled in my head for so many years that one drink was equivalent to a crack pipe. I've been smoking weed and drinking in moderation. And I think I find this very brave because, of course, there are so many ways and options on dealing with addiction. And to some, the hump of nothing for the rest of their lives of complete sobriety is just too much, and they would rather continually drive down that vicious cycle that they're in as opposed to completely being sober. We also see complete sobriety being roads to a night of relapse or a night of intense relapse because you're breaking the seal and you're continuing down. Whereas moderation, it gives you boundaries that are not so strict, and when the gates are breached, it's less of a big failure to yourself that you feel. And more importantly, it seems that with any program that you decide to do when you're on the path away from addiction, is you can do anything you want as long as you have a strong community, a strong support group that is compassionate, that is listening to you, that is hearing what you're saying, and that doesn't judge any decision you decide to make. As long as you have that, I feel like you can do whatever you want. And it's just most important that you have that community. So I find it very brave that Demi Lovato is coming out and admitting this. I think that with her platform, she can get a lot of people to see that AA or NA is not necessarily the only option here. There are other options. Yeah, and that's it for Hump Day. We'll see you on Friday for another show. See ya.
So what's really awesome about getting to wear masks in public is like you can literally do whatever you want and no one knows it's you, okay?